All right, Professor Daniel Robinson, Faculty of Philosophy, University of Oxford. Do I have that correct, sir?
That's the right place.
Now I know who you are, and I want to salute you and thank you for all your work.
Well, may I say I do use Harry's razors, by the way.
Well, thank you. I do, too. They're great, aren't they?
It's a very good buy. Yes. I wish I had bought them when I got the $5 off by mentioning your name. Okay. Well, Mark, tonight's program is illustrative of so many of your programs in that all of the stories which seem to be disparate actually are seamlessly connected. And I would put them under the general heading of the lost sense of what it means to be an American. You know, the right answer to the question, when did Rome fall, is not Thursday afternoon in 476 A.D. The fall of Rome was occasioned by the failure of the average Roman to understand just what it now meant to be a Roman. And I think that sense, that civic sense of being American, has been eroded for decades. And of course, we now have an administration that happily, I think, presides over the complete demolition of the notion of what it means to be an American. Now, on this college board business, and by the way, advanced placement scores don't rank very high on the when Oxford's looking at applicants from the U.S.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
There is an international baccalaureate program which does get high marks, but I give a number of lectures over the years for Robbie George's program at Princeton on American ideals and institutions. And, in fact, I'm on Robbie's board of scholars. I gave one a few years ago, and there's a reception after these things. Young couple comes over in their 30s, both of them having majored in history at Princeton, estimable institution, I don't talk it down. And I queried them on how American history was approached in their undergraduate days. Oh, the approach was very basic: slavery and capitalism. Mm-hmm. And once you had plumbed the depths of the slave experience and capitalist exploitation, that more or less exhausted the history of America. Jeez. Now, if that's going on at one of the premier institutions at the collegiate level, and we've got the college boards playing around with young minds that are capable of absorbing both rubbish and gold, then to find out some years later that nobody really knows who the vice president is, because what does it matter? Nobody really knows what it means to lose capitalism, because after all, it's just a mode of exploitation. So these things begin very, very early, and they are carried on through a course of decades. We now have a citizenship that is largely insensate at the civic level. They know what they want personally. It's Tocqueville all over again. You can touch your neighbor, but you don't feel him. This is the life in the bubble. And the way the government handles life in the bubble is by pumping into the bubble the sorts of things that inebriate, please, help with sleep, help with everything, help with your gender in case that's a problem. I don't know how one gets out of this. You mentioned the difficulty of sorting out what's going on in the Middle East. We have failed to sort out what it means to be citizens of the United States of America, which, as it happens, I say this with an objectivity that I think I can defend, probably has more to do with celebrating the dignity of the individual than any political entity in the history of the world. And anyone who thinks that this happened by accident is a fool. Accidents don't happen that way. This results from a particular perspective, which we almost treasonously briefly refer to as Judeo-Christian, as if it were a chapter in a book. Remember John Adams saying that when the Puritans got here, they made it a felony if your children couldn't read. Mm-hmm. That a country, a people that will treat as a crime the failure of children to attain literacy is a first in the history of the world. Now, we look at the founders as if they were shaped in marble and no longer have anything to say. They have everything to say. They have things to say about the nature of rights. James Wilson had something to say about when life begins. The idea that they couldn't handle Roe v. Wade because they knew nothing about fetology. All of these fortune cookie maxims are so readily exploded, even by a cursory examination of the history of ideas. And this is something the College Board just can't handle. Even if it weren't ideological, it's stupid and superficial. It has to render itself in a form that is machine scorable. Mark, nothing at the level of thought is machine scorable.
Mm-hmm. Professor, fascinating, brilliantly put. I want to thank you. You've been pressing the case for the founders for decades.
This country has to thank you, my friend.
Well,
may I say, my tragically young